Hi, everybody. It's Russ Kenzier, and welcome back to Safety Matters. We're going to be talking a lot about safety today, and joining me is my co-host, Tony B.
Hello, Russ. We have a good show here tonight.
We have a great show here tonight. Last show was interesting.
Yes.
And the interview that came after it. But today we got a few interesting stories that we haven't really covered in the past. The first one is the issue in Seattle. Just December 22nd, right before Christmas, the Seattle Fire Department responded to over 200 calls for slipping and falling during their winter storm. 233 calls came in.
My goodness.
People slipping and falling. Now, look, in order to call like a fire department, man, you got to be hurt.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I know from 5 p.m. On December 22nd through 5 p.m. on the 23rd, 24 hours, Seattle Fire had responded to 287 calls.
New video just
Check out the
into
weather.
Our newsroom. Kay Bergsey reported this scene today overlooking a hill in Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood. Ooh, you can see that car sliding. This is right near 5th and Prospect.
Hold on.
Several cars in this video are seen just bouncing off and then
slid all the way down.
I
know that area.
Hill.
My son lived in Seattle for a few years, and I'm very familiar with that area. But it's a slope and it's all ice.
Other cars just trying to get by. Very, very dangerous out there. Just shows how icy
Imagine
it is. And
just park your car there and it gets
stay home.
Crushed. So the sidewalks, everything was just a disaster. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2017 said there was 20,460 ice, sleet, and snow-related injuries.
My goodness.
14% of those, or 2,890 cases, occurred in the state of New York. Incident rate of injury in the state of New York for this type of accident was 4 cases per 10,000 full-time workers. Here's the map. This is kind of interesting. Notice the white states are those that don't report. New York's pretty bad. It's in that moderate kind of green color. But look at Maine and
Alaska.
Montana. Yeah, Alaska. What do you think the number of injuries in Alaska is? If New York has 4 per 100,000, what do you think Alaska would have?
Maybe double.
8?
8. Try 28. Right?
A lot more?
480.
All right, well, let me challenge you. They don't have as many people. New York is much heavier populated.
Sure.
I think there's more caribou. They don't count caribou or reindeer falls.
Bears.
But no, you're actually not too far off. The actual number is 12. 12. So there's a lot more folks getting injured in Alaska as a result of a slip and fall on ice than there is in New York. But I can tell you, when it gets icy, and it can get icy here in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets iced over, and people say, it can get really, really dangerous. But 287 calls came in. Got another interesting case for you, or story for you. This is one about the COVID story. Yeah, just a few days ago. Doctor tells skeptical CNN host that COVID deaths are being overcounted. People need accurate reporting. I just find it always interesting when you hear news stories that say, that the hosts are skeptical. Well, they're talking heads.
Yeah.
They're not doctors. They have no medical training or scientific training. They're people that read teleprompters, and they're shocked.
Right.
Oh, my God. How could that have happened, that we overcounted?
Right.
Well, you're going to recognize the researcher, the doctor. Remember her?
Yeah.
Yeah. She worked for the center. I guess she did or does work for the Centers for Disease Control. Note she's in a celebrity status, right? She's got the evening gown, the backdrop. What's that all about? You got the celebrity doctor, medical professional. That's kind of, look at me, I'm really smart. Now that I'm on the red carpet. Just found that to be a little odd.
Yeah.
But anyhow, her name is Dr. Leanna Wen. And she told a somewhat skeptical network host on Tuesday that the U.S. has been, quote, overcounting, end quote, the deaths and hospitalizations of patients due to COVID-19.
Oh, looky here.
and stressed the importance of transparent reporting on the actual numbers. Okay, now this is, we covered this, you and I, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago.
3 years ago.
The numbers didn't make sense.
No,
I mean,
they didn't.
People get sick.
Yeah.
It's a flu.
But
it's a bad flu.
if you said anything about it,
Yeah.
it's like,
You know, Bob Saget died of COVID. Where does this end? You know, but the irony is that the lady, I mean, who was behind all this in the media is now doing a 180. So in response to questions about whether Wen's claims could be, quote, fodder for the conspiracy theorists. By the way, what's the conspiracy? Isn't it?
yeah, it's you and I. It's you and I.
I mean, what's the conspiracy? It's true. Wen actually said, she simply said, we just need the truth, and mentioned that the U.S. medical community needs to fine-tune a better way to record COVID-19's harm
Well,
to the
I agree
community.
with that statement.
Okay. Not at the time.
Yeah.
At the time, if you were to say, hey, I think the numbers are inflated, or
Yeah.
just because the guy who came into the emergency room because he got killed on his motorcycle tested positive for COVID, that really shouldn't be counted. But they did.
Right.
And remember, Tony, follow the money.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money behind this.
Money grab.
The vaccine, there's a lot of money into promoting all that. And
Yeah.
so it was, scaring people to do what the government wanted them to do.
Yeah.
Oh, you got me started. The interview followed Wen's bombshell Washington Post column from last week, in which she cited epidemiologist who told her the amount of deaths and hospitalizations primarily caused by the virus may only be 30% of what's been reported. 30%. So 2/3 of the total was not correct.
No.
Hospitals are still routinely testing everyone who is getting admitted for COVID, Wen said. We're seeing many people who are hospitalized with COVID, and I think it's important to separate out who is being hospitalized because of it. Because there are a lot of people who are still very concerned about this risk from COVID, and we need to give them more accurate data possible so they can better gauge their risks. Now, this seems to be the epitome of hypocrisy. At the very time we were in the middle of the fire, she said we weren't on fire. I mean, it was not what everything's not what you think. It's just all hands on deck. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
We need respirators.
Right.
More respirators.
Right.
We need to move the ship, the Comfort. Remember? In New York.
Oh, I know.
It's unbelievable.
I know.
And so I'm glad the truth is finally coming out, but it's coming out in this kind of drips and drabs, trickle, not a mainstream media story that's going to get any publicity. And after all, when the hosts of the talk show say, hey, we're skeptical, that story is DOA. In the piece, again, she said every hospitalized patient needs to get tested, and many are incidentally positive. By the way, you're pregnant. Anyhow, she talks about herself, added a point about gunshot victims, for example, saying if these patients die, COVID might get added to their death certificate along with the other diagnosis. But the coronavirus was not the primary contributor to their death and often played no role at all. Well, what's kind of often played? How many times does a gunshot victim die of COVID? I mean, it's the gunshot, I would presume. So you see a lot of tap dancing, and you and I covered this 3 years ago.
And remember, Bob Saget died of COVID.
He did. He died with COVID. He died of COVID.
Yeah.
What can I tell you? Amazon.
Oh, yes, this was just on the news.
Did you see this?
Yes.
The other day. Fell into a septic tank.
Yeah.
You know what a septic tank is, right?
Yes, I do. Not very septic.
How do you say this name, Tony? He's Italian.
A Manicanangelo.
You made that up.
No.
Yeah.
Manicana
Yeah, that's the Amazon driver.
Angelo. Manicanangelo.
That's Italian, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I really
Anyhow,
don't.
he said he noticed a hole in the ground. And as he approached the customer's property and on the way back to his truck, he dropped the package off. The ground underneath him suddenly gave away. Even though, this is a quote, even though I kept a bit of a distance from the hole, I still managed to fall in it because the ground collapsed under my feet. This is from Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
And so there he is in the hole.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how you fall in that hole. Well, that's a pretty big hole.
Well, you know what happens. I mean, even in this, when you're in the street, you always see these, they put the metal, these retainer walls in there, because that's generally what happens.
Because you don't want the soil to collapse in on you.
That's right. You don't want to.
There was nothing, I guess, to barricade this.
Yeah, but a septic tank, it must have been a pretty big size hole. I mean, to begin with. When he walked close to it. He just walked around it, and that gave way, and he fell in. I know I kind of messed.
A septic tank, just.
I know I kind of messed up his name, but people like, I mean, the story goes on with a good ending. This guy, he washes himself up and he goes back to work.
Exactly. After he was rescued.
That's a great story.
Congelo went home, took a shower, and went back to work.
That's right.
Isn't that great?
That's a great story.
I think the best part of the story is he didn't get hurt. He just fell in, and I mean, I'm sure it had to be pretty nasty.
Yeah, no, I know.
And
but he stayed calm and cool and collected.
But you're right. A lot of these construction sites, where they're digging trenches, and they put those steel barriers in the hole to prevent collapse. Now, he didn't have a problem with collapsing.
Right.
But would one call this a construction site? Was this under construction?
Well, I think it was a home.
Yeah, but how did this big hole just appear?
Well, probably out in the country. They do usually where septic tanks are, where they don't have sewer. So it's probably a rural area.
But don't they cover them and then they have like a manhole that goes into it?
Yeah, but when they're pulling the tank out or putting the tank in,
then it's a construction site.
Yeah, probably.
Well, on that point, we actually have an interesting show slated for next week. Dan Zarletti, a friend of mine, former member of the National Safety Council Board of Directors. He actually was a trustee. Will be interviewed next week, and he's going to talk a lot about construction safety, like this case.
Right.
But Dan suffers from Parkinson's disease.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and he's very open about it, and we talk a bit about his struggle, his challenges with Parkinson's, and as a safety professional, this guy's a safety guy, let me tell
you.
This has really hit him pretty hard, and so Dan's going to be joining us next week for a discussion about workplace safety and a little bit about Parkinson's and the effect it has on individuals, and how, when it comes to falls, you have to safeguard people with Parkinson's who may not have full function of their body. So, anything else you want to talk about today?
Well, bringing up a good, you get down to the heart of safety. And sometimes we chuckle about certain things, messing up names, but, things that happened. And
I didn't mess up a name.
And just like on American Funniest Videos, right? There's a chuckle, that ha, grandma falls down. Yet she broke her hip. Who knows what other issues she had? She may have died 3 years later after that accident. There's all the stories that go behind it. Even us, sometimes we laugh and chuckle about it, but falls aren't funny.
No, they're not, and
there's always a person behind it.
Well, there's a story behind it.
Yeah,
there's a human being behind it.
That's right.
And throughout the season, we're going to start showing some videos of people falling.
Yeah,
we're going to show real videos, not the stuff you see on mainstream media. Tonight at 10, woman caught on surveillance video putting water on the floor.
Right. But like the Post Malone, he's an entertainer.
Yeah.
Right. You would think that they would have all the safety put-ups on everything, walk it through. But that stage was kind of small.
Remember when Michael Jackson?
He lit himself up.
Yeah. The fireworks went off.
Please forgive me there. Now here I'm laughing again.
But my point is, these injuries for entertainers are common.
They can get dangerous.
They can get very dangerous. And you're right, though. There's a story behind the
Now, on the good side of things, like what happened to the Buffalo Bill player, they had that trainer was out there, right there, making things going, So they get the my earpiece fell off, but they understand the severity and how important things are to be.
And they're trained.
They're
responsive.
They do these things off, so they're doing all the time.
Right.
They say they do these drills where they're constantly off.
They earn their
off-season
pay.
and in season.
Yeah, those guys were the unsung heroes,
Right.
The trainers
Absolutely.
of all people. But you're right; it does take a toll on people. And when you hear the interview with Dan, he says that
Right.
Russ, there are things that I never thought about,
Right.
And now I have to think constantly about.
Because safety matters. It really does. I mean,
That's a name for a show.
but it really does. The essence of it.
Yeah.
It makes
Amen.
sense. You either have to be proactive, reactive, and post-active.
Ooh, I'm going to use that in my next book. All right, Tony, you got to go.
Well, it was good. It was a good show. We'll see you next week, right,
Yeah,
Russ?
we will be back next week. And until then, this is Russ Kenzior and
Goodbye, everyone.
Tony B saying goodbye, and we'll see you soon. Take
Thank
care.
you.